What if the greatest cover-up in human history wasn't political, it was theological? This is the question at the heart of a larger framework, one that unifies biblical history, ancient text, and global mythology into one coherent story. Today we're examining evidence for one piece of that story: giants. What if giants were intentionally erased to preserve our position as the top beings on the planet, second only to God? And what if the story of David and Goliath wasn't about faith triumphing over strength, but the symbolic moment when humanity overthrew the last remnants and claimed dominance? Every continent, every ancient culture, the same story. And then it disappeared. Most people know Goliath, but he wasn't alone, and he wasn't even the largest. The Hebrew Bible documents multiple distinct giant races: the Nephilim, original hybrid offspring of the sons of God and human women; the Anakim, so large that the Israelite spies said they felt like grasshoppers beside them; and the Rafaim, an ancient race whose name literally means the dead ones. There was King Og of Bashan. His iron bed measured 13.5 feet long by 6 feet wide. That suggests a being 10 to 12 feet tall. Goliath himself stood roughly 9.5 feet tall, and his relatives had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, a genetic trait called polydactyly that ran in their bloodline. This isn't mythology. These are specific measurements, specific genetic traits, specific locations. But if the Bible documents giants this thoroughly, why don't we talk about them? Why was the Book of Enoch, which explains everything, removed from canon? Maybe because acknowledging them threatens the entire hierarchy of creation. The Book of Enoch was once scripture, quoted in the New Testament, read by early Christians, and Jewish tradition treasured it. And it was removed from canon, buried, forgotten. It survived only in Ethiopia, which never stopped considering it holy. Why was it suppressed? Maybe because what it describes was too uncomfortable. Enoch tells of 200 divine beings called the Watchers who descended to Mount Hermon and made a pact. They would take human wives. They would teach forbidden knowledge. They taught metallurgy and weapons, astrology, enchantments, sciences humanity wasn't supposed to have. And their offspring, the Nephilim, grew to extraordinary size. They dominated the earth, became violent, and consumed everything. The gods and monsters of every ancient culture, the titans, the giants. What if they were all describing the same beings? Not metaphors, not mythological archetypes, but actual entities that interacted with humanity across cultures, called different names in different languages. The Watchers, the Anunnaki, the Elohim, advanced, long-lived, but not ultimate, not the source itself, but intermediaries, travelers between realms who shaped early human history. This is the framework that makes sense of everything. But here's the question nobody asks. Where are the original texts, the complete accounts, the detailed records of the Watchers, their teachings, and their offspring? The Vatican Apostolic Library, formerly called the Secret Archives, holds 53 miles of shelving, estimated 35,000 volumes. Restricted access, only qualified scholars with special permission get in. What's in there that we're not allowed to see? What documents about the Nephilim were deemed too dangerous for public knowledge? The Vatican says it's protecting historical documents, but from who? And why? Here's what cannot be explained by mere coincidence. Every major civilization on every continent, separated by oceans, tells the same story. In Greece, the Titans ruled before the gods and were overthrown in cosmic war. In Scandinavia, the Jotnar were primordial giants. In India, the Daityas were mountain-sized beings who warred with the gods. The Native Americans Paiute speak of the Siteka, red-haired giants who arrived by sea. In Lovelock Cave, Nevada, archaeologists found 15-inch sandals and remains measuring 8 to 10 feet tall. But here's what happened next. The Smithsonian Institution was accused of confiscating and hiding giant skeleton evidence from across North America. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, newspapers documented hundreds of giant skeleton discoveries, 7, 8, 9-foot remains found in burial mounds from coast to coast. The Smithsonian collected them, and then they disappeared. Official explanation? Lost records, misidentifications, normal-sized bones misreported by untrained observers. Now, mainstream archaeology dismisses these accounts. They say the bones were mastodons, misidentified by untrained observers. They say newspaper standards were loose in the 1800s. They say if giants existed, we'd have verifiable remains on display in modern museums. And they're right that no museum has confirmed giant skeletons on display today. But that doesn't answer the pattern. Hundreds of reports, different regions, different decades, different newspapers, all describing the same thing. Either it was the most widespread coordinated hoax in American history, or something was found and then removed from the record. In Peru, Spanish conquistadors documented indigenous stories of giants so tall that from the knee down they were as big as an ordinary man. The pattern cannot be ignored. Giants from divine human mixing. They existed before catastrophe. They were powerful but corrupt. A flood destroyed most of them, but remnants survived. How did cultures separated by oceans with no contact tell the same story? Unless it wasn't a story at all. If giants existed, where's the evidence? Perhaps we've been looking in the wrong place. In Baalbek, Lebanon, they have the trilithon. 3 stones, each 68 feet long, weighing 800 tons. That's 200 elephants, each stone. In the quarry, the stone of the pregnant woman, 1,000 tons, never moved. Our largest cranes can lift about 20,000 tons, but they require massive infrastructure. These stones were quarried and placed without any of that. There's Göbekli Tepe, Turkey, 11,000 years old, built by hunter-gatherers before agriculture, before pottery, before the wheel. T-shaped pillars weighing 50 tons, carved with intricate reliefs, astronomically aligned. And here's what breaks conventional archaeology. The oldest layers are the most sophisticated. Over time, construction got simpler, as if knowledge was being lost, not gained. In Puma, Punku, Bolivia, at over 12,000 feet altitude, 8-shaped blocks cut with millimeter precision in andesite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. No metal tools capable of this work have been found. There's Easter Island's Vinipu Wall, polygonal blocks perfectly fitted. Identical construction to walls at Cusco, Peru, 6,000 miles away across the Pacific. How did cultures on opposite sides of the planet develop identical techniques? Unless they learned from the same teachers. The monuments point to knowledge that was lost, not gradually through time, but suddenly, as if those who possessed it were destroyed. So here's the pattern. The Smithsonian hides the physical evidence, the bones that prove giants walked among us. The Vatican hides the textual evidence, books that explain who they were and where they came from. Religious institutions rewrote the narrative, removing the uncomfortable parts, simplifying the hierarchy. All to preserve one story. Humanity is the pinnacle of creation, second only to God. But there's a framework that makes sense of all of this evidence. Layer 1, the source, ultimate reality behind all existence, what every mystic has touched. Layer 2, the travelers, advanced beings who interacted with early humanity, called the Elohim in Hebrew, Anunnaki in Sumerian, the gods of every culture. Layer 3, human interpretation, our filtered understanding distorted by time and language. In this framework, the Watchers were travelers who broke cosmic law. They bred with humanity, producing the Nephilim, hybrids with great power but disconnected consciousness, power without wisdom. The flood destroyed most of them, but Genesis says they were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. The bloodlines survived, diluted, diminished, but present. And the monuments they built are testimony written in stone. David versus Goliath. We're taught it's about faith triumphing over strength. But read it differently. It's the symbolic moment where humanity overthrew the last remnants of the giant bloodlines. When a shepherd boy, representing regular humans, killed the champion of the Rafaim. The message wasn't, God helps the weak. The message was, the age of the giants is over. Humanity is now supreme. David didn't just kill a man, he killed a symbol, the last echo of an earlier age. And with that stone from his sling, humanity claimed the throne. But if giants were real, it means we're not what we thought we were. We're not God's masterpiece ruling a world made for us. We're the species that outlasted our predecessors. We claimed the throne. We didn't inherit it. And maybe that's why the evidence was buried, because the truth is more uncomfortable than the myth. We preserved ourselves as the top beings on the planet, second only to one God, and we did it by erasing everyone who came before. But here's what this framework reveals. If the watchers were real, if the Nephilim walked the earth, if the flood reset civilization and Babel divided humanity, then the prophets who came after, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, they weren't teaching different religions. They were teaching the same reconnection to the source that humanity lost when it was severed in Eden. The evidence exists. The pattern is undeniable. The question is, what else did we lose when we rewrote history? And more importantly, can we find it again?